Hey, it's Sri here, and in today's video I'm going to talk you through 8 important steps that you need to take when you want to separate with your husband in a classy way when there's children involved. You know, when you're going through a separation and when children are involved, it is just the most painful thing that you can imagine. And I know that there's probably a huge amount of confusion in your own mind and uncertainty, and probably takes you into survival mode where you're just not really sure about what you need to do because it feels like you're about to lose the things that are the most important to you. So my heart goes out to you, and I want to make sure that you have some clarity in terms of the steps that you need to take in order to move forward in the best possible way. Now, before we dive in, I just want to let you know that I'm opening up a few spots for my Authentic Relationship System training program, which you'll absolutely love. And the idea behind the program is to help not only in your marriage, but more specifically about how to help you to become the best version of yourself. Because I'm a big believer that in a relationship or a marriage, if you want it to flourish, or if you are on the way out in your marriage, if you want to recover and heal, you need to shift from within first. That's where the transformation occurs. So make sure you stick around to the very end, and I'll give you details on how you can speak directly with me to help understand where you are now, where you want to get to, and how we can bridge that gap in the quickest possible time and see if my program is the right fit for you or not. So make sure you hit the subscribe button below so that every week you receive access to my latest videos teaching you specifically about how you can improve the quality of your marriage, how you can heal within yourself, how you can improve your communication, and how you can understand more about male psychology as well. As I said earlier, going through a separation is really, really difficult. But when your children are involved, it makes it even more difficult. And I know there's a whole bunch of horror stories out there of, partners who just get their lawyers involved, and it just makes it really, really intense. And there's huge custody battles that go on for years and so on. And we want to avoid that at all costs because, as you go through that, it just means way more time, way more money, way more emotional energy spent and so forth. And that becomes really, really difficult to deal with. We want to make sure that in the future that you guys have a really, really positive connection, because no matter what, your husband will always be the father of the children and you'll always be the mother to your children as well. And we don't want to impact that relationship at all. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk you through 8 important steps that you want to take in order to separate from your husband in the most classy way possible, but also to ensure that it impacts your children in the most positive way as well. Now, the first step is you want to give yourself the permission to be human. It is totally normal to have a range of emotions as you're going through this difficult time. The fear, the anxiety, the feeling of security, not being able to maybe provide for your family, or what are you going to do financially if your husband was the breadwinner, and so on. It's totally okay to just give yourself that permission to be human. Emotions are going to go up and they're going to go down and up and down, and that's all part of the natural cycle and the natural evolution as human beings in terms of our emotions. So you've got to give yourself that permission to be okay and to be human through this journey, and know that you are going to be okay in the long run. I think that's one of the most important fundamental, beliefs that we've got to hold on to. Because a lot of the time when we're in that survival state, we don't think we're going to be okay. But you've got to really buy into the idea that you are going to be okay in the long run. And if you know that wholeheartedly, it'll make sure that you're in a more leveled emotional state in order to ensure that you make the best decisions for your future. Now, the second step I really wanted to point out to you is about guilt. Now, it's not necessarily a step that you need to take, but more of a point that I wanted to really reinforce. You see, naturally, a lot of individuals will feel guilt when they're going through some sort of separation. And they're going to feel guilt because they feel like their kids are missing out on having a happy, loving home and so on. And part of that is feeling as if separating and the parents being split up is going to result in somehow affecting them at a deep, profound level. Now, I'm a really, really big believer that it's actually better to part ways and be amicable and have a beautiful, positive role model where two individuals are really, really happy but can coexist or can just communicate really positively, than to have two individuals that are together but are miserable and are not actually a positive role model for love. Because as the kids get older, that's what their memories are. That's how they've been conditioned. They observe their parents, they observe the behaviors that they engage in and how they actually lived together and the connection that they had. You know, I've seen so many instances, and even just growing up, seeing different parents and different friends of mine and their parents and how they interacted. And you could see how much of an impact the ones that didn't have any positive connection. And this is, by the way, even with parents that weren't actually separated, they were actually together, but they didn't have any sort of connection. They weren't interested in each other. They were always bickering at each other. And so sure, they weren't divorced, but the connection was so poor, it actually impacted the children, because as they got older, they had no real role model for what a beautiful relationship was all about. And so they ended up just getting into poor relationship after poor relationship. Now, it doesn't mean that it's doomed for them at all. It just means that, you know, they may have a little bit of work to do in order to address things. But the key thing to remember is that even if you have to separate, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that they're doomed for the rest of their life or anything like that. And I just wanted to reinforce that point, because I know how much guilt that can play on the minds of both parents when they're going through some sort of separation. And I wanted to just reinforce that particular point. Now, the third step that you want to take is to ensure that you don't rubbish your husband. You know, regardless of what the problems are between the two of you, it is really, really important that you don't go and rubbish him to your children or anything like that. And I get it, and I understand how sometimes that can be tempting, but it's really important to remember that your kids will always have him as their dad, and they'll always have you as their mum. And you've got to foster and create a beautiful connection between them. It's important that they respect that, and that you don't try and diminish the respect that they have for him because of some of his behaviors. Because one thing I know is that no matter how thin you slice it, there's always two sides to the story. So you really want to make sure that you understand that, you know, he's got his flaws, you've got your own flaws, and that's okay. It's just about making sure that you don't rubbish or diminish the respect that they have for him because of some of the challenges that you guys have had between the two of you as well. Now, the fourth step that you want to take is to make sure that you create an environment for your children to be able to express themselves in whatever way that they need to. And what I mean by that is that even if your kids are 11, 12, 13, whatever age that they are, you know, they're going to have their own feelings and emotions about it, and it is going to impact their world. There's no doubt about that, and there's no point beating around the bush around that point. But what's important here is that an environment is created where they feel comfortable opening up to you and to be able to express themselves and to ask questions. And then every now and then you can periodically check in and just say, hey, honey, are you okay? You know, do you have any questions about anything that's going on? Do you want to know anything about what's happening? And no matter what it is that you have, I will be here and I will answer it honestly, and so on. And you can sort of create this environment where they can actually ask questions and that you give them the permission to do so. And what that does is it kind of elevates them as individuals, and they are feeling a little bit more, you know, respected, and that their opinions actually count. Because I think a lot of the time kids sort of feel like, oh, you know, they're made to feel like they're kids, and then you're adults, and what they say or what's in their mind doesn't really matter. But what is inside of them is really important in their world, and it needs to be made important. So if you can create that space for them where they can actually speak their truth and let you know a little bit about what's going on in their mind, and that gives them an avenue to be able to, you know, offload and express themselves. And if they're not comfortable speaking to you, then, you know, see if you can get them booked in with a counselor or a therapist that's actually well respected and can actually support them on this journey of theirs, because it is not easy for them, there's no doubt about that, But if you can create an environment for them, or give them an environment in which they can flourish in and actually be able to express themselves in whatever way they need to, then that means that you're doing everything in your power to help them with the transition that they're going to be going through soon. Now, the fifth step you want to take is to make sure that there's no competition involved here. This is not about trying to, ensure that the kids are picking you ahead of their father or vice versa. It is really difficult when that comes along, and it's too much of a burden to be placed on either side. You want to make sure that there's a beautiful relationship between you and the kids, and you want to make sure that they've got a beautiful relationship with their dad as well. And if you can do that, you can create a lovely environment where both kids, or however many kids that you have a positive relationship with each of you individually, then once again it ensures that the transition is smooth, and it ensures that in the long run that you actually still maintain an amicable situation between you and your husband, and the kids aren't caught in the crossfire at all. Very, very important that that doesn't happen, because it's such a draining experience, and it's really, really toxic for them as well. You don't want that to happen. You want to recognize that, the relationship that a father has with their children is so special and unique, as is the relationship between a mother and her kids as well. One's teaching more of the masculine, one's teaching more of the feminine dynamics, and these are all beautiful things to be able to foster in a marriage. You want to recognize that both mum and dad are creating this beautiful connection with their kids, and that their individual relationships with the kids is such a positive experience for the kids and not just for themselves as well. Number 6, you want to make sure that you are processing your emotions in the best possible way. Now, when people are going through any sort of separation, there is a feeling of loss. You have to go through a particular grieving process. But what a lot of people do is that they kind of, go through it themselves. They're not really sure what to do. They sometimes can, engage in avoidance mechanisms, so they're not actually giving themselves the permission to feel what they feel. They bury themselves in work, or they go and have a few glasses of wine or whatever, and they kind of steer themselves away from actually learning to process their own emotions. The internal world always is responsible for how we perceive the external world. So we need to make sure that the internal emotions that we're feeling, that we're processing them in the most productive way that we possibly can. And if you stick around to the end, I'll make sure I give you the details on how you can speak directly to me. And I have a special, unique technique called the emotional healing process, which will help you to be able to resolve and address some of your own internal emotions, so that don't stay and last forever and ever, that you can actually process and heal them as they come up. Number 7, you want to make sure that you reinforce to them that none of this is their fault. So many times kids will often play up as a way to seek attention, to try and get the parents together, or they'll often find that they're the ones that were responsible for the separation. And we all know it isn't. And it's really important. Kids are fragile. Kids are at that age where their psychology is being shaped. And so you really want to reinforce to them that none of this is their fault, that mum and dad were just going through some challenges, or however you want to pitch it, but reinforcing the fact that it isn't their fault. They had nothing to do with it. And as long as they know that they're loved, no matter what, unconditionally, then that's the greatest gift that you can possibly give your children during this time. Love heals all. And if you can create more of that loving connection, and help to really foster that in them, and have them know that none of this is their fault, then you're laying the platform for them to be able to ensure that they do progress. And look, I've got a number of friends who have had parents who have separated, and to this day they've got the most beautiful marriages, with their wives, because for them what was important was trying to ensure that they did everything they could to create an outstanding marriage for themselves and for their children, because they know what it's like themselves. So in a lot of ways it can actually work out for their best. So, it's not all doom and gloom if these situations occur. And I really wanted to just reinforce that point, because at the moment, what you're going through It's probably so difficult. There's a whole bunch of fears that are going on in your mind. And I just really wanted to reinforce the point that you can still have kids who flourish and who have a really healthy sense of self and self-esteem and self-worth, even if they're at a place where their parents are separating. And finally, you want to make sure that you get the appropriate advice and the support that you need on this journey. When you're going through a relationship that's not going well, that's hard enough. When you then have to go through a separation, that sort of takes it to a whole new level. And we can feel isolated, we can feel alone, and it's not the sort of thing that you really want to announce publicly as well. You can feel a lot of guilt, feel humiliated, feel like you failed. There's a whole bunch of different emotions that come up. So that's why having the support that you need is crucial in your ability to create the healing that you need moving forward. And that's why I do what I do, and that's why I've created the Authentic Relationship System, because my program is all geared towards helping you to become the best versions of yourself, to make sure that you heal from within here. If you heal from within you, then your perception of your reality is going to totally change. You're going to feel lighter, you're going to feel happier, and you're going to feel a greater sense of peace. And you're going to be able to see things with complete clarity. You'll be able to see things in your marriage that maybe you didn't see beforehand, and realize, wow, actually I'm surprised that I was able to tolerate that for so long, and so on. We really want to help you to be able to create the healing that you need so that you can move forward and maybe create an extraordinary relationship moving forward, or just finding and reclaiming your sense of self. Because one of the common comments that I hear from my clients is, Shri, I haven't felt like myself in 20 years. And so what we're doing is we're taking them through a process where they can really reclaim who they are, become the best versions of themselves, create the healing that they need to from within. And from that place, that's when all the magic starts to occur. In terms of seeing if you're a good fit for my program, is below in the description section, you'll see a link to my calendar. All you need to do, click on that link, choose a time that works for you. There's a short questionnaire that I need you to complete, and I will call you at the specific time. We can work through where you are now, where you want to get to, and how we can bridge that gap in the shortest possible time. It's an amazing program. You'll absolutely love it. It's all run completely by me. I don't have any other team members or anything like that that are going to be doing any of the work. It's all done through me, because a lot of the tools and the techniques that I teach are things that I have applied on myself and my clients. And so I know that they work. You've just got to show up, you've got to put the work in, and I know it absolutely creates life-changing transformation. So make sure that you just click on that link below, choose a time that works for you, and I'll call you at the respective times. Absolutely no pressure whatsoever. Just want to make sure that we can just see if this is the right thing for you. And secondly, make sure you click the link below to join my private Facebook group called the Love, Joy and Passion Group, where you can learn some specific tools and strategies on how you can become the very best version of yourself, how you can heal any of the emotional scars inside, and just really reclaim yourself. And if you are in a place where you are married and it's going okay, but you're wanting to take it to another level, this is a perfect environment for you to improve, to grow, to connect with me and some other incredible women out there who are making some remarkable shifts in their lives at the moment as well, and in their marriages. Now, thank you so much for watching this video. If you've liked it, make sure you hit the like button below. If you want to get more videos like this every week, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to learn the 4 steps to save your marriage from the brink of divorce, make sure you click this video above. And if you want to learn the 3 ways that women obstruct their feminine energy in relationships, make sure you click this video above. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you in the next video.